Business has always been about turning a profit, making money. But can it stand for something more? Something beyond dollars and cents? We think so. We think that today, business has a higher calling, a purpose to be fair and just, to do right by their workers, customers, communities, and the environment. And it turns out companies successful doing that also do better for their bottom line. When you see the Just Capital seal, it means this company is a force for good. Visit justcapital.com to learn more.
Good afternoon. We are doing it live right here in the 4 o'clock hour, getting right down to business this afternoon ahead of Oscar Sunday this weekend. The red carpet economy is going strong. We are doing more in 2024. Now in the 4 o'clock hour, Mottek On Money live on the air for you at 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks ending a bit lower today to wrap up the week. Investors assessing the February jobs report, which came out first thing this morning, showing a tick higher in unemployment. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 69 points. The S&P 500 coming off its record high, down 34, and the Nasdaq slipping 188 points. That February jobs report showed stronger than expected job creation and a slightly higher unemployment rate of 3.9% and cooler wage growth last month. The markets reacted to that report. For the week, we see the Dow down just about 1%, the S&P 500 down 0.3%, and the Nasdaq was down 1.2%. Gold hitting a record high today. Looks like those gold-covered Oscars, chocolate Oscars that'll be served this weekend might be going up in price. We see gold ending at a new high, $2,185.50 an ounce, a sixth straight record high finish for the price of gold. From gold chain to a blockchain now, Bitcoin also hitting a record high today. Yep, you heard me, briefly topping 70,000. And right now we see Bitcoin hovering at around, let's see here, 68,329. Coming up, I'll discuss the latest financial market action with Gina Sanchez, CEO of Chantico Global, CNBC contributor and longtime contributor to this program, and also discuss the jobs report and the Los Angeles economy later this hour with prominent Los Angeles economist Dr. Robert Kleinhens, principal at Kleinhens Economics. Well, it's all about the red carpet economy this weekend. The hotels are packed. Restaurants packed, too. Last night, the Oscar Wilde Awards were held honoring the Irish in film at J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Film Studio in Santa Monica. Among the honorees there, James Bond and Remington Steele himself, Pierce Brosnan. Now, the Academy Awards set for this Sunday, March 10th, Hollywood's biggest night. It's expected to be a big night for Oppenheimer, maybe Barbie, too. The stars will be on the red carpet leading up to the Dolby Theater at the Hollywood and Highland Complex, attending the ceremony, and then they'll be coming out and they are hungry. For the 30th year in a row, Chef Wolfgang Puck has the awesome responsibility for the Governor's Ball dinner and gala right after the Oscars. And Chef Wolfgang Puck is on the air once again, live to continue this 30-year tradition, live on the air ahead of Oscar weekend. Chef, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good afternoon to all of you.
Wonderful, Chef. Tell us what the stars can expect there when they come out of the ceremony, and they're going to be pretty hungry on Sunday afternoon.
Absolutely. You know, most of the stars, the producers, directors, and all the people who work in the movie industry, they go in the morning to the hairdresser to do makeup and stuff like that, and then they have no time to eat because this year, actually, it starts an hour early. It's at 4 o'clock. So come 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, everybody will be hungry, and they all come up to the ballroom, and we have 150 chefs cooking for them. Now, this year we have some stations in the dining room, like we have a Chinois station where we serve Peking duck and Chinois lamb chops, and we also have a paella with lobster, and then we have a station from our restaurant Cut in London with beef Wellington, fish and chips, and an English trifle. And then we do so many different dishes, people's favorite, like the chicken pot pie with truffles. We do that every year, and it's so successful because it's great comfort food. Then we have our macaroni and cheese, which we do every year. Our risotto with vegetables for the vegetarian, which is really delicious. And if somebody doesn't eat meat or fish, it's the perfect way to go. So we do about 30 different dishes. And one of my favorite is the Miyazaki beef from southern Japan. Southern Japan, it's really the best beef you can get of that style, the Wagyu beef. So we'll pass around small plates, and we have different stations. We have a station for pasta, where we have different kind of pastas, like a ravioli with quail eggs and a tomato guanciale sauce. We're going to have our agnolotti with sweet peas and black truffle butter. And then we're going to have also the risotto, as I said before. So there are many, many dishes around. And obviously we have fish. We have roasted black bass, a Veracruz style with tomatoes, onions, and roasted bell peppers and a little lemon and capers and olive oil. So really deliciously tasting food. And naturally, a ton of desserts. One of our favorites these days is our chocolate cigars. People really seem to love them. But we also have beautiful panna cotta for the vegan, raspberry panna cotta. And then we have a pava rum with a pina colada cocktail, actually. We have chocolate eclairs. We have Kit Kats, little remembers of the past, but with really good chocolate. So I don't know. People won't go hungry. And on top of it, Prince Robert from Luxembourg is here, and he brought.
Chef, you're back on the line now. Will the price of gold at record high? Those gold-plated Oscar desserts there, have they gone up in price since last year?
Thank God, maybe since last year a little bit, but we have our own chocolate, a real great chocolate made with chocolate beans from cocoa beans from Madagascar and from Ghana. And we have 24 karat gold, which thank God we bought 3 months ago. And so it didn't reach the all-time high like you just said, but we're going to make 3,500 24 karat covered chocolate Oscar.
That is absolutely terrific, and we're on there live with Chef Wolfgang Puck, once again, whose restaurant empire includes Spago, Cut, Merwa, Chinois, and the list goes on. And obviously, it's a big weekend for the local economy, Chef. Are the restaurants packed where you are this weekend?
It's amazing. Parties everywhere. I mean, we had so many different awards from the different guilds, the SAG Awards, the Directors Awards, and the Directors Guild. And we had parties at Fanny, at the Academy Museum, and I'm sure every hotel is occupied. I know the Pendry Hotel is 99% occupied already. I don't know if they have 1 or 2 rooms empty, but I think it's a great thing for the local economy, for sure, from everybody, from the hairdresser to the makeup artist to the limo services. There's so much which goes into it, plus all the stagehand, all the people who work on it. So it's really a great event. It puts LA on the spotlight. We hope it's going to be beautiful weather. And I think it's really where we shine doing these special events. And we are very honored to do the awards dinner for the 30th time already.
That's amazing, and we've spoken during that entire span, which is quite remarkable. Of course, at the top of the Pendry, that's where Merwa is located, which your son operates there beautifully. And then, of course, Cut at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, where people walk in and see that magnificent portrait of you right at the entrance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Cut is our steakhouse at the Beverly Wilshire, which is open now since 2006. So 16 years, and our newest restaurant is actually in Las Vegas. It's called Karama. Karama means dear mom, and we opened that a month ago, so in the Mandalay Bay. So we continue slowly to open restaurants. So it's exciting, but I think it's an exciting week for LA. I love the movies, especially I think Christopher Nolan's movie, Oppenheimer, is probably one of my favorite. And naturally, The Flower Moon from Martin Scorsese is great, too.
Yes, anything pink on the menu, Chef, to honor Barbie this weekend?
Alexander, my son Alexander, he loved the Barbie movie. I think he saw it twice.
But it looks like Oppenheimer's going to do well. Barbie right behind him, probably. And having done this for 30 years, Chef, you probably know what star likes what dish at this point, right? I know you've mentioned Barbara Streisand in the past and other stars. They have their favorites.
Sure. Barbara Streisand loved the chicken pot pie. Tom Cruise loved our Wagyu beef. One of his favorite things. And Martin Scorsese loves our pasta, and I'm sure he's going to like our ravioli with the guanciale tomato sauce this year. And then we're going to have a great paella. So if Javier Bardem or any of the Spanish guys is there, I'm sure they will be very happy.
And, of course, with the stock market just below its all-time high, and, of course, gold and Bitcoin also at or near record highs here, it looks like the champagne could be flowing this weekend, Chef. I think we were cut off just before you got to the champagne part of it.
Oh, like the champagne and the wine. You know, we have great wine from La Mission Aubryon, La Chapelle de la Mission, which is really an amazing red wine, and also their white wine. And we had the Chateau Miraval champagne, a whole new champagne, which is really delicious too. So plus the 42 tequila, Don Julio 42, you know, it's one of everybody's favorite. So we have some wonderful chocolate truffles to go with that. So it's really a great, great night.
Think about when you started this 30 years ago to have that awesome responsibility. You must have been tremendously excited, but it sounds like your enthusiasm has only increased over the years.
Totally. It's always very exciting. And, you know, now this time it's actually much better. It's a party instead of just a sit-down black-tie dinner, you know, where you cannot move around. Now you have tables a little bit lower, couches, chairs, and everything. So if you find a few friends, you sit down with them, you enjoy a few chicken pot pies, maybe some Chinois lamb chop with mint cilantro vinaigrette, or maybe a little bit of pasta or paella. And so you can decide what to eat, and then you get up and walk around, and you say, okay, Christopher Nolan is there. I'm going to go say hello and congratulate him, or Martin Scorsese, or whoever it is. So it is more a party atmosphere instead of a straight sit-down dinner where everybody has their seat assigned. So you can actually mingle, hang out. You can get your Oscars engraved right there in the middle of the room. And we have food stations, pastry stations all over the place too. So it's going to be really a feast. And the great thing is, after the show, everybody is hungry. You know, they all want to eat.
Right, when they come out, I think you got the shrimp buffet out, right? That people attack it like sharks, right? It's hard to believe, Chef.
Yeah, with sushi and shrimp and lobster cocktail and stuff like that. Right when you come in, we have two of our famous pizza ovens making some great fresh pizzas. We have our smoked salmon Oscars with caviar. I mean, there will be so much food, so many different dishes. I think we do something like 30 different dishes. So I think by the time you eat everything, you're ready to go home after and take a little rest.
That is absolutely amazing, and it's hard to believe. What was this, 3 or 4 years ago? They were talking about would we ever see buffets again? Right during the pandemic days, it's amazing how things have rebounded completely.
Oh, totally rebounded. I think we have dinners. We had a big lunch at Cut today. I think everything is back to normal now, and I think what I love about this year's Academy Awards is there are some really great movies out there, you know, really special movies from Barbie to Killing of the Flower Moon and obviously Oppenheimer and many more. I did not see all of them, but I hear they are really amazing.
That is absolutely terrific, and I know you've been just planning for this for quite some time. Your Crowning Achievement restaurant that is planned for the Gladstone site there at Sunset and PCH. Any updates on your plans for that grand restaurant there?
Oh, it's still a little bit. We have a little bit hit a little snag because the city and the county are debating who is going to be in charge of it. The Coastal Commission thought the city should do it, and then it's on county property. So I'm on the sideline right now, waiting until they figure out what's going on. I hopefully sooner or later. I already have a call in with Mayor Karen Bass, and she said she's going to work on it as soon as she gets back from Paris.
Wonderful. And, of course, Frank Gehry, the architect, right, as you've told us. So we all will be following that with you closely. But in the meantime, Chef, we'll let you get back to your important work in the kitchen and getting set for welcoming all of your guests this weekend. Chef Wolfgang Puck, thank you very much for joining us live this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. You know, me and my 150 chefs, we are ready for Sunday. So we'll be ready then.
That's fantastic. I'm getting very hungry now, and I think the whole audience is very hungry. So we wish you all the best this weekend, and congratulations on your 30th year at the Governor's Ball.
Thank you so much. You too. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Righto. Happy Oscar weekend, and right out to the freeways now, 790 KBC. 790 KBC welcomes, want to take a guess? Yep, Herman's Hermits coming to the Canyon at Montclair March 30th. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com, and right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller 9. Call right now, 1-888-795-2222. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Well, the big enchilada, the monthly economic reports came out today. The jobs report from the Labor Department showing the job market added 275,000 jobs in the month of February. That was a lot more than economists had expected, but the nation's unemployment rate increased to 3.9% from 3.7% in January. And this, by the way, is the first increase in the unemployment rate seen in 4 months, and it now stands at the highest level seen in the last 2 years. Of course, the Fed pays attention to this number, and it looks like the market bet at the moment is that the first Fed interest rate cut will come in June. And we'll be talking about that shortly with Gina Sanchez, CEO of Chantico Global, coming up here shortly. And on the job front as well, later this hour, I'll be speaking to Dr. Robert Kleinhans, prominent Southern California economist, principal at Kleinhans Economics. The Dow coming in for a closing loss today of 69 points to 38,723. The S&P 500 down 34 at 5,124. And the NASDAQ down 188 at 16,085. All the major averages coming off of recent all-time highs. We did see gold hit a record high today, right now hovering at $2,186 an ounce, up $21, and oil pulling back about $1 right now to $77.84 a barrel. Of course, it's been a wild week, and in fact, a wild day for crypto once again. Bitcoin hitting an all-time high above 70,000 during the trading day today. We see a Bitcoin right now down about 1,000 at 68,305. Ethereum down 12 at 39.05, and Doge at 17 cents. We did hear from the SEC chairman today, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, regarding crypto. And the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, offering new warnings about cryptocurrencies as Bitcoin surged to a record high today, saying in an interview with Yahoo Finance that, in his words, the whole field is rife with abuses and fraud. Investors, he added, should be aware that Bitcoin is a highly speculative, volatile underlying asset. According to Yahoo's comments came minutes after the world's largest cryptocurrency reached another record high, climbing above 69,000, then above 70,000 today. Earlier this week, it exceeded the previous high last set during a 2021 boom, reinforcing a remarkable comeback following a 2022 crash that created huge losses for crypto investors. Now the latest news for you here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Break out the bubbly. Big weekend for Hollywood. Hollywood's biggest night coming up on Sunday for the Academy Awards, as we just talked to with Chef Wolfgang Puck, who has that big job preparing the Governor's Ball dinner following the big ceremony. And, of course, we see a lot of folks involved in the stock market and financial markets will also be celebrating with the major averages just below all-time highs achieved this week. The S&P 500 slipped 34 points today off its all-time high. And we see gold at a record high today as well, and Bitcoin reaching for the stars here above 70,000, hitting a record high today as well, bouncing around right now. Let's discuss the latest market action with Gina Sanchez now. Joining us live here, Gina Sanchez, CEO of Chantico Global. You've seen her on CNBC, and she's also been a longtime contributor to this program. And, Gina, it's wonderful to reconnect with you here. It's been a while since we've chatted behind live microphones. Great to have you with us here this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
Wonderful to have you with us. And, since it's been a while since we've chatted here, give us your view of this record run-up we've seen.
So I think there's quite a bit of enthusiasm. Obviously, it was kicked off by NVIDIA's powerhouse earnings that really reignited the growth and AI rally, but we've also seen a reinvigoration of retail, which has been showing through in earnings all week. And quite frankly, this is coming from the fact that wage growth has been trending above inflation now for several months, and you're starting to see that impact the earnings of most of our favorite retailers that we thought had had a really rough year and had given very cautious guidance. But now we're starting to see some upticks across all of those names.
And certainly the Magnificent Seven getting a lot of attention. Now we've talked about this a lot, down to the Magnificent One. NVIDIA, you mentioned it, hitting record highs again this week. What's your view on NVIDIA here?
So, NVIDIA and all of these trades, sometimes it's really mind-boggling to start to do the math on what the forward earnings suggest the company has to grow to in order to justify these prices. But the reality is that this trend is here to stay. The idea that we are going to be learning from, learning on, and leaning on machines to do quite a bit of the heavy lifting for us in terms of thinking is going to increase productivity over time. And the economy that we're basing a lot of these multiples on is going to change. Now, whether or not it will justify this, that remains to be seen. And I'm not going to go out there saying that NVIDIA is cheap, but NVIDIA's trends are very clear, and the demand for their product is very strong.
All right, what about the other Magnificent Seven or Magnificent Four or whatever else you consider magnificent at the moment?
Well, look, the other stocks in the Magnificent Seven are all doing okay. This is very much a growth rally. This is very much a large cap rally. That's what we're seeing. And you look at these trends, these AI trends are not just hitting NVIDIA. They're really going across the spectrum. You're seeing folks like Microsoft and their cloud build out is doing well. Google is has the potential to gain not only on their cloud play, even though that has had some issues, but also the wireless play. A lot of people forget that all of this AI that we're talking about, it's dependent on several things. One, faster chips, faster semiconductors. Number two, the massive amounts of data. And number three, the ability to transmit that data. And Google's actually been making a play in the 5G space. So there's a lot of ways to play this AI rather than just NVIDIA.
And certainly the Fed's next move is expected to be lower on rates. When do you think that's going to happen?
That's the big question, Frank. When? Right now, if you look at the Fed funds futures, that's priced in sometime around June. You are, continuing to see the most recent PPI popped a little higher than expected, a little hotter than we were expecting. And while that is sort of the kind of inflation that hits producers rather than consumers, it does suggest that we might see some tightening of margins over the next couple of quarters. And if that transmits to CPI, which is the end inflation that people experience, you could see the Fed continue to sit on their hands. And they've already been communicating out to the public that they are ready and willing to do nothing in order to ensure that the inflation genie is back in the bottle.
All right. Any thoughts about the economy here, given this uptick in unemployment and sitting at a 2-year high all of a sudden?
So, this is interesting because we've actually just been witness to a round of upward revisions to expectations for GDP growth for the end of the year. There was a time when we thought GDP growth would be that we would hit a recession sometime this year. Then that was revised up to just a technical recession, and then eventually revised up to just modest growth. Now it's revised all the way up to 2.1% expected growth by year end. That's pretty good. So, it's going to be interesting to square the circle where you have continuing unemployment in this world. It is giving rise to greater wage growth, strangely enough, because there's also a misfit in jobs. Companies that are looking for jobs are having a tough time replacing them, whereas you have a buildup of too many people in other sectors and they're getting laid off. So, there's a lot of mismatches right now in the economy, and it's going to take some time to work those out, get people retrained, and some people will not be able to be retrained. So we'll have to see what that does to the economy.
On there live with investment expert Gina Sanchez, CEO of Chantigo Global, longtime CNBC contributor, longtime contributor to this program. Just as we're hearing inflation supposedly easing, we're seeing gold hit a record high and crypto also at a record high. What are your thoughts on gold chains and blockchains?
I think that has more to do with the expectation that we're going to start to see some easing of the of financial conditions more than true expectations of inflation. The inflation trend is very clearly down, and I don't think that's going away. However, if you are starting to price in Fed cuts, even if only 3, that's really what's probably putting the air back into the crypto bubble.
All right, on this program, we speak to the biggest fans of crypto as well as the harshest critics. I remember years ago you worked with the so-called Dr. Doom economist, Dr. Nouriel Roubini, who's been no fan of crypto, at least at last check anyway, and has had some very harsh commentary about crypto. But what do you think of Bitcoin and the other cryptos here?
I still am continuing to remind people that regulation is still not there. We do not know how these assets are going to be treated from a regulatory perspective. We're seeing more work towards getting those questions answered, but you still see, unexpected tax surprises that are occurring, and just sort of the lack of clarity on how these assets are going to be traded from a regulatory perspective and from a tax perspective just continues to kind of keep a cloud over these investments with just enough uncertainty to keep the outcomes for them very clear.
Any thoughts about these Bitcoin ETFs and the apparent mainstreaming of crypto investments?
I think it's it's definitely an interesting development, and one that is going to potentially bring money off of the sidelines that wouldn't have otherwise put money in. I do think that it is potentially dangerous because it could be a lot of what reinflates, Bitcoin values while still under that regulatory uncertainty. So I don't know that it was a good idea. Obviously, I am not the queen of the world, and I had no decision in that. But I do think it's probably going to lure people off the sidelines, and I'm not yet sure that there is value there.
All right. At this point, let me ask you the big question we ask here, and that is, where are you putting money now and/or taking it off the table?
So, we have stayed pretty conservative, and we have, been overweight large cap. I do think there is some potential for small cap toward the end of the year, especially if we continue to see wage growth, because large caps, while made up of, of a large hunk of financials, are also made up of a significant hunk of consumer discretionary. And that's a place that you will see, like retail, like I mentioned, that's a place that you will see a bounce. And so there could be, so far, small caps have been trailing, and they continue to trail, but I think that there's some potential there. Overseas, we continue to keep money weighted towards Japan and away from Europe. Europe still looks like it's going to remain in stagnation for some time, even if you assume that we're going to have rate cuts at the same pace with the ECB as you see with the Fed. But there we're keeping to the trades that we've had on for some time.
Terrific, Gina. Well, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here this afternoon. That is Gina Sanchez, CEO of Chantigo Global, based right here in Los Angeles, by the way, CNBC contributor, and a greatly appreciated longtime contributor to this program. Gina, we wish you a great Oscar weekend and hope to talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. And right out to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Friends, people like you and me have our ear to the ground in all things business. We like to be informed and indeed well prepared. As important as finance is, I want you to have a plan in case you're hit by someone not paying attention to the road. Thinking ahead serves us well, and even still, we can get caught off guard as people are so focused on their destinations that they might not have a plan if they're in an accident that is not their fault. That's why I encourage you to put my friend Attorney Clark Fielding's number in your phone. That number, 833-88-SHARK. So if you're in an accident, you'll be ready with your strategy to make Clark Fielding your very first call. Fielding Law aims for the highest possible settlement, considering you might need long-term care, rehab, compensation for lost wages, and any ongoing physical or emotional pain. So if you're hurt in any kind of accident, call for a free consultation with Fielding Law. You can trust them. They're honest, respected, and your strategy in case you get into that unexpected accident. Motorcycle, truck, pedestrian, scooter, hit and run, boating, or bike accidents, you name it, 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Big jobs report out first thing this morning. Let's get an update now on that, as well as the Los Angeles economy, as well as the local job picture here. Let's bring in prominent Los Angeles economist, Dr. Robert Kleinhens, principal at Kleinhens Economics. Also these days, director of the Office of Economic Research, adjunct professor at Cal State University Long Beach, also research fellow at the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. Former top economist at the LAEDC, former deputy chief economist at the California Association of Realtors, and the list goes on. Sounds like we've got the right guy on the line. Dr. Robert Kleinhens, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
It's my pleasure, Frank. Nice to be on.
All right, thank you very, very much. And big news today, the big enchilada of monthly economic reports, the jobs report from the Labor Department, interestingly showing a better than expected job creation number of 275,000 nationwide, but the nation's unemployment rate did tick higher to 3.9% from 3.7%. It's now at the highest seen in the last 2 years. Give us your assessment of this latest jobs report.
Well, if we take a look at the U.S. and then we also take a look at what's happening statewide and locally, we've got a mixed bag. At the national level, even though the unemployment rate ticked up to 3.9%, we still have solid job growth that is, much higher than the long-run average that I tend to look at when we look at these monthly numbers, the 275,000 job growth that you mentioned. So that's occurring against the backdrop of an economy that continues to grow. GDP is expected to grow here in the first quarter by about 2.5%. We finished last year with 2.5% growth. Inflation is, maybe not coming down as fast as some would like, and not giving the Fed the opportunity to cut rates as soon as some would like. But I think we're headed in the right direction as far as the national economy is concerned. When you look at the state and local economy, it's a little bit different story. At the state level, the unemployment rate. Sure. At the state level, the unemployment rate was 5.2%. We got our first read of the state economy and the local economy this morning, and the numbers were re-benchmarked. So that's a story in and of itself. But the unemployment rate for the state, 5.2%. The labor force for the state is still a little bit behind where it was before the pandemic. That stands in contrast to what has happened at the national level, where the labor force is about 2% higher than it was. So this is the starting point for describing a difference between what's happening at the state level and what's happening at the national level.
And just as the Federal Reserve takes this all in, you'll be taking all of this in and giving your economic forecast at the San Gabriel Valley Economic Forecast Summit coming up here on March 27th. The great folks at the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership organizing this one, and you are at the forefront of this event with your forecasts and panel discussions. Can you preview what you're going to tell the folks there?
Sure. So at the local level, it looks like LA County and the San Gabriel Valley will maybe eke out some job growth in 2024. Last year, there was very little job growth with these revised numbers. Some of the key industries that did well last year and are expected to do well again this year include healthcare, leisure, and hospitality, which is still recovering from the pandemic. But what has weighed down the local economy has been the situation with the entertainment industry in the wake of both the pandemic and the strike. So we'll talk about what's happening at the local level, talk about the outlook for the national economy, which is a little bit more optimistic than what I see here in Southern California. And all this is taking place at the City of Hope in Duarte on the 27th, as you mentioned. Thank you.
That's terrific. Yes, we'll hopefully get to see you there. And certainly the red carpet economy is big this weekend. We just talked to Chef Wolfgang Puck about the restaurants and his Governor's Ball banquet that he's organizing again for the 30th year. And the hotels are packed and all that. Certainly good news coming off the strikes last year. What do you see ahead for Hollywood and that important part of the local economy?
This certainly is a welcome development to have the, here we are in the midst of the award season that is so important, not just to the local economy, but to anybody who's interested in the entertainment industry. So that bodes well for this year for the entertainment industry. I think that, as I mentioned a moment ago, that sector really suffered due to the strikes. There were a lot of job losses we have yet to recover. And of course, there were job losses in conjunction with the pandemic. So this should be a good recovery year for the sector, not just here in Southern California, but throughout the nation. as we move forward. And so I'm fairly upbeat about that. That should give a boost to the local economy as we go forward.
All right, and no conference would be complete without at least mentioning AI. And I see at that event coming up on March 27th, AI is going to be part of the conversation. What do you see ahead there?
Yes, so we're going to have a panel that's going to talk about the future of AI at the workplace. I am not on the panel, but I think the sense is that artificial intelligence is not so much going to eliminate jobs, but change the way people do jobs. And just about any one of these technological breakthroughs that we have experienced, both in our lifetimes and before, has a tendency to grow more jobs than not. But it's a disruptive situation that we find ourselves in and will for the next several years. But, here in California, this is where so much of the R&D and commercialization of AI is going to happen. So I'm fairly bullish on how that's going to play out.
All right, terrific. Great to speak with you as always. Dr. Robert Kleinhans, prominent Los Angeles economist, principal at Kleinhans Economics. Thank you very much. We wish you a great weekend.
Thank you too, Frank.
Thank you very much. And coming up next, it's the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. Wishing you a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday at 4 o'clock. Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Afford Anything talks about how to avoid common pitfalls, how to refine your mental models, and how to think about how to think.
If you sacrifice your dream for the sake of satisfying someone else, that can often lead to ongoing resentment, which then poisons a relationship. Subtly, slowly, but it does. And if he doesn't want to let you down, then your dreams matter. Afford Anything, wherever you listen.